going on? What's going on, everybody? Another week
Good
of
evening.
your favorite podcast live. One of my two favorite guys. I'm your host, Shelvin Mack. I got my guy, Tony Delp. How y'all doing?
Man, we're doing
Good,
wonderful,
good.
man. No
I'm
complaints.
hyped. I'm
No
hyped.
complaints.
I'm hyped though.
We could complain, but you know what? Hey, it's a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
And
we
in
definitely
saying
got a
that,
lot to talk about.
right, and in saying all of that, I'm honored to introduce our next guest. I grew up watching him as a young kid. Goes by the name of Julius Erving, the Dr. J. Over 30,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 5,000 assists, a NBA champion. When I tell you someone who was a trendsetter back in the 80s, 90s, the 2000s, this a remarkable human being. We are honored and we're blessed to have Dr. J on our show.
Gentlemen,
My
happy to
How
man.
you
be
doing,
here with
sir?
you. Happy to be here with you. Tony, thanks for the shout out, man.
Hey man, always man. Like I said, it's so many great years of watching the Philly rivalry with Boston, and finally
Yeah.
seeing you win that championship, man. That was nothing better than what you did, and like I say, even going back to your ABA days. I mean, we probably could have went on for about 2 or 3 hours on just your highlights alone.
Yeah. Yeah. That means I was out there for a long time. So it's a blessing. If you get 16 years in doing something that,
Woo.
you love to do and you get paid for it, you didn't get a whole lot, not compared to today's numbers, but we would have been playing for free if we had played in the league. You know how that was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I want to say thanks for being on the show. I
Mm-hmm.
say something real quick. They got on me last week. I heard a friend of mine, Jeff Teague, on the show. They got on me for wearing a
Uh-huh.
hat. But this man
Oh,
got on some
okay.
76ers gear today. What's going on with that?
Hey man. Hey,
Maryland
I just
legend,
got.
that's for sure, man.
Oh yeah, Hey,
You
it's
got
so
Allen
funny,
Iverson. You
man.
got Allen Iverson on, right?
Hey, if I knew I
The
could whip it off
answer.
and put you on, Doc, I put that 6 on right now, man. Hey, I'm so excited to see you again, man. We've been able to spend some time together over the last year or so. It's a blessing,
Hmm.
man, to even be in your presence. And I mean, I was so honored that you would even accept it. But I know the type of person you are, because I know you see everything
Yeah,
that's going on in the world, and I know
yeah,
you've been through some of this stuff.
yeah. So it was a 50-50 chance that I would answer that text, right? But yeah, 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 yeah. But really, yeah, what's happening now? I mean, it's not new. I mean, obviously, Rodney King, same thing. Once we get these court rulings, and we don't even have a court ruling in this situation, with Mr. Floyd, but once we get that, I mean, some people are going to be excited, ecstatic, and, want to promote peace, and others, the troublemakers, the people who got nothing to lose, they're just going to hit the street and run amok, just like, they're doing in so many of these cities right now. So, unfortunately, there's always a mixed message within the message. And, I've been a follower of Dr. King and his philosophies of peace and nonviolence and whatever. So, so that's what I believe in. I continue to believe in it in my senior years of life. But what I'm seeing, I mean, is disgusting. And when I saw, the officer choke uh, Mr. Floyd out, I mean, I never seen anything like that in my life, man. I mean, we watch movies and we watch dramatizations all the time, but then in real time, real life, you watch somebody get choked out for 9 minutes and, I mean, suddenly, they are no more. I mean, that's inhuman. And I thought
Yes.
that in this time, in this age, the least we could be is act like humans with other humans. So I'm sad
Nah,
about that.
I definitely, yeah, I definitely agree. Now we're gonna take the time right here to watch the a short version of the video of what happened.
Hmm.
Despite calls for medical help, Chauvin keeps Floyd pinned down for another 7 minutes. We can't see whether Koenig and Lane are still applying pressure.
What do you want? I can't breathe. Please, the knee in my neck. I can't breathe shit.
Bro, get up, get in the car, man.
I will.
Get up, get in the car.
I can't move.
I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get up, get in the car.
Mama.
Get up and get in the car right.
I can't.
In the two videos, Floyd can be heard telling officers that he can't breathe at least 16 times in less than 5 minutes.
I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe.
But Chauvin never takes his knee off of Floyd, even as his eyes close and he appears to go unconscious.
Look at him. Get off of him now. What is wrong with y'all? What the f***? He got made. He got made.
According to medical and policing experts, these 4 police officers are committing a series of actions that violate policies and in this case turn fatal. They've kept Floyd lying face down, applying pressure for at least 5 minutes. This combined action is likely compressing his chest and making it impossible to breathe. Chauvin is pushing his knee into Floyd's neck, a move banned by most police departments.
Bro, he's not moving.
No, did they f***ing kill him, bro?
Minneapolis Police Department, the EMTs.
That's tough to watch, Julius. I know it is for all of us.
I know. That's generational, man. They're going to use that as the poster for something bad. And unfortunately, there's probably groups, here in this country who are sitting and watching it and applauding it. That's the scary part about it. It's two sides to the coin, and we got to deal with it. So, the fact that there's 6 nights in a row with protests, that's great, and let it go on and on until, justice is served, and then there's change, because this is all about change. I mean, the platform that we have right now is just promoting the ideology of change, and there need to be changes. I mean, for not only for my generation, your generation, the kids, and the following generations. It's got to be a different world.
I agree. I got a statement and a question for you, Dr. Julius. The first statement is, when I watched it, man, it put me in a different space. Now, in my mind, like I said, my dad's from New York, like you. So I was raised by somebody from New York. Your whole mentality is different in the South. Like when they were doing that in New York, police were getting shot at by the guys in New York. They wasn't just dealing with it. So tell me, how do you think, if you were in the presence of that, and I know it's hard to put yourself, because in my mind, I'm saying, man, a lot of guys are yelling, talking in the background, begging to plead, but I don't know if I could have stood and watched and not got shot myself. I don't know if I physically could have not at least made a motion, but I don't know. You don't know for sure, but
Mel,
what would you put yourself in that situation?
Mel, that's a great question, because when I'm watching it, I mean, it's almost like you want to jump through the screen and just run in there and run the officer off of him. I mean, the risk of getting maced, even getting shot, for them to draw and shoot you or whatever, still would take time. But right now you would have accomplished your mission. So I can't believe that somebody in that crowd or whatever just didn't stop it. I mean, it just. But what we couldn't see was what was happening in the back of the truck, and they had 3 people pinning them down, not just one. The other 2 were pinned him down because, if you listen to the audio, the woman is saying, "Just get up and get in the car." And he's like, "I can't. I got, I got 2 people on my legs, people on my midsection, and a man on my neck. So I'm helpless."
Yeah, in theory,
Go ahead, Mel.
I said, in theory, we would think that we would want to help, like we would rush them, but we don't know what was going on behind them and around them.
Mm-hmm.
And my follow-up question, my second question is, what experiences? Because I know you're going through the 60s and the 70s, in your generation, you've seen some stuff. So tell me some situations. What was one that came to memory when you saw that? What came to your memory when you saw that? I know you've been in some situations that were heart-wrenching.
First of all, I grew up in Long Island, right? And Long Island is the suburbs of New York City. It's 24 miles door to door from the projects that I lived in to the projects in the middle of Manhattan. and it's supposed to be an hour or less. And lots of times it would take 30 minutes to get there if you go by car and there's no traffic. Other times it would take 2 hours. So, the skyscrapers were around. They were the backdrop. Fortunately, I didn't have to deal with them day in and day out because I lived in the suburbs or whatever. But the suburbs had their issues too. They had gangs, and they had neighborhoods in our county where you crossed the line, you were in somebody else's neighborhood that you didn't belong in, and you needed somebody to have your back or not have your back. So I'm sitting here and I'm watching this, and I remember losing friends in high school to either police brutality or going off to war, to fight a very unpopular war, which was the Vietnam War. And either way, the net result was, somebody dying before their time, somebody who was, between 16 and 25 dying. My little brother even died, and he had, a disease after he passed that they call lupus erythematosus. And we didn't know what the hell that was or whatever, but it took his life when he was 16 years old. So that pain and agony and hurt associated with losing someone. I experienced that very young in my life, and it's something that you will never get used to, and you would never, just accept people going before their time because we know that everybody's going to die at some time or another, but nobody has a right to take somebody else's life.
For me, I've had, in my 46 years of living, I witnessed the Rodney King back in when I was in high school. And just as I witnessed this, it hasn't set, like I say, I haven't slept well. My thoughts have been racing all over the place. And I know we touched on what we could have done as black men to help our fellow black man who was, being brutally murdered in front of our eyes. And it was tough just to be in a situation knowing that we can't help that guy, knowing, with all our resources and what we've done as individuals. How would you explain this to our listeners, your family? What would you tell them, like in your eyes, you know, how do you explain to them, you know, this incident and in a way where they can understand it to the point where
Mm-hmm.
they could be sure of this never happening again as a society?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a guarantee that we really can't give. But what we can do, we could say, look, everybody's not bad. All police aren't bad cops, just like all people aren't good cops. I mean, there's some terms in our life, some verbs are used in an exaggerated sense. They say people always do this, and all the people in the group are doing such. Everybody's drinking, everybody's smoking, everybody's whatever, lying, cursing, whatever. It's not all the people all the time. It's some of the people all the time, but the real reality is, when you take an individual stand and you have something that you stand for and you let it be known as a public stance, then what it does, it attracts people to you. It makes them listen to your words and begin to think like you, and that's who you're going to hang out with. You're not going to hang out with the whole universe. I mean, there's 6 billion people on the planet. There's a fair share that are going to be your people, your friends, your family, and that you're going to be able to identify with. And it's not everybody, unfortunately.
Now, with me, being the youngest on the call, still currently playing, I know I had talked to a lot of friends and colleagues that I have in mind, and it's always a situation and thing that comes up a lot is knowing like NBA players and NFL players, people are like real prominent right now. And, a lot of people see what happened with Colin Kaepernick. You think players should be more vocal in instances right now? Like we saw Jaylen Brown come down from Boston driving 16 hours to be part of a protest, him or Malcolm Brogdon. Like how like players should handle it now versus how they handled it back then.
Well, it got handled back then with the kid gloves being taken off. So big people in big places. Bill Russell, who was my hero and who somebody who met when I was 19 years old, and I learned all about him. From that moment on. I mean, he took stands that were unpopular. Jim Brown, who comes from Long Island, Manhasset, Long Island. He was a homeboy of sorts, except he was 15, 20 years older. And he took stands that were unpopular. So the idea, Arthur Ashe, Reggie Jackson, these are people who were a part of my generation who I sat with and went to conferences with and did, different things with and had these real conversations about pooling our resources and trying to, make something special happen economically for our communities. So, the resources are greater now. The imprint, whether it's a footprint or whether it's a handprint, can be bigger now because of the economics, and then because of the technology. You can reach the world in an instant. The stuff that gets tweeted out and that gets sent out on Facebook, Instagram, and all the social media channels or whatever. When something happens in one area, the world knows about it. You know, in an instant or whatever. So because of that, stories make headlines and then they get erased from the headlines in an instant if something else happens. And because of that, sometimes you don't get the full experience and you don't get the full impact and ability to see something through from beginning to end and deal with all the things that you learn from the process that you have to go through to get from point A to point Z. It's like point A and point B, and the next thing you know is C that wipes it off the headlines. And that's one of the complicated things of living right now that we all have to invest a little bit of time in trying to figure out. And maybe there's something about COVID-19 that is aligning, that says it's giving us a chance, to sit back, be home, think about some things way more than just for a millisecond, and then going from pillar to post, but really dealing with something that is meaningful in your life, that your heart is telling you need to pay attention to.
Amen.
Oh yeah. Nah, I definitely agree. Especially with the COVID going on, I've been able to spend a lot more time with my family, just being able to think. Then also in Israel this year, they kind of have the same kind of situation going over Israel and the Palestine line. So the people in Palestine um, mistreated in certain things and fighting for justice. So this year has been a crazy year for me. I just been around it the whole time, and it's eye opening. I have more time now to do my research and be in there. Got to
Hmm.
figure out what things, especially being so young. I'm not. I'm just my life. I'm not really used to it at that level. This year, the COVID made me sit down and like, you're gonna pay attention to these things.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. When you had mentioned, talking about Kobe tonight, and Kobe was a huge headline, and there was this great response, and then COVID came, and suddenly ain't nobody talking about Kobe anymore, and that was an example of something very meaningful and impactful, and that touched us all in our hearts. Suddenly becoming put on the back burner because the next big thing happened.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. So much has happened this year, and with you on, I cannot be remiss but not letting you know how many people respect and love you. I'm sure you hear it, but our generation, especially me and Tony's, you are the leader where we came from. You were the epitome of grace. You've been the epitome of style. And when I got to spend time with you, I tell when I describe you, I said hanging out with Julius is like watching a movie, like being filmed in HD. You know, like he just smooth as he is. just as genuine. So I want to thank you for being who you already have always been, man. It's a blessing to even
Yeah,
talk to you about this. But but the
yeah,
racism, man. You from New York? And my dad, y'all had a different type of racism. That I consider some of
yeah.
this classism because they're not coming in your neighborhood where you live from school, jerking black kids
Hmm.
out the house. They're not coming in my neighborhood, jerking people out the house. So what do you think is more racism or classism or both? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think that racism is real, but I think the term itself, or whatever, there's people who have different definitions for it. So it's how you personally defined the word once you hear the word. Some people say, well, it's just black against white or brown or yellow, or it's a color thing. And other people say, well, it's an economic separation thing, poor people versus rich people. Rich people are racist against the poor people. And so the working definition of the word is generally something that people don't look up. And when they do look it up, it tends to talk in terms of color being one of the first things that they talk about. But then they also talk about other things that separate the person, one human being from another human being, that they get separated by their race. And that becomes very confusing.
Mhm.
So when I'm growing up, I wasn't born and raised in an environment that said I should hate any group of people. So I was very fortunate in that regard. And I did a lot of integrating of situations from an early age. When I played for the Salvation Army basketball team in Hempstead, Long Island, and I was like 11 years old, me and my best friend Archie Rogers, we were the only two black kids on the team. And the year before, the team had 12 white kids. And then we
Mhm.
came and we integrated that team. So the next year, suddenly it was six black kids and six white kids because we had a good impact, and we led the sports program there to realize
Yeah.
and trust and believe in taking an African American kid, taking a black kid would be of a benefit to the program or whatever. So I don't think it was using us, but it was integration before we even knew what was happening. We weren't even thinking about it in terms of integrating. When I started playing golf, and I went to a golf club that was predominantly a Jewish club. It was a 100% Jewish club, and I went there as a guest and whatever. And some of the things that happened in that experience, whatever, came down to really they didn't want me to be there. So when they didn't want me to be there, I didn't want to be there, right? But when I came back and I started thinking about it and I started processing it, I said, you know what? I can make more change from being inside a situation than I could do from being outside. So when I went to these clubs where they didn't really want me to be, and I wasn't necessarily trying to be a member, I was just a guest or whatever, I would have a chance to get in front of some people and show the best of what I was representing. And by being black and being whatever, articulate, educated, and so on and so forth, I showed the best, and they softened their view. So I think racism is really about the biggest challenge that there is to change in life, change in lifestyle, and change in our society. And dealing with that issue, the way to solve the issue is to change and promote change and do it from within.
Amen. Doc, how you looking on time? We can keep you all night, or I can let you get back relaxed. How you looking on time?
I'm
You
good,
tell us.
man. I'm good. I'm good. I'm
All
good.
right.
I think y'all got some other stuff to talk about, right?
Hey,
One another,
we
but
go we
We
gonna
just
cut
want
up
to
a
talk
little
to
bit.
Doctor, man.
Yeah. Ain't nothing more important
do
than
we wait? Do you want to talk about the NBA a little bit?
Yeah. We'll go to
Or
sports
you want to
after
talk
the break.
about, or you want to talk about, or you want to talk about the big three?
You know I got the big three on my mind. So we'll go to break in about 2 minutes. Last question about this, because what we always try to do is when we talk about a problem, talk about a solution. One solution I
Mm-hmm.
thought about, and it's probably been implemented on a small scale, is have some of these police forces integrated where they actually have to come to sensitivity training, either in the projects or even the minority school system, where they actually have to deal with us on a day-to-day basis. It's hard to shoot the guy when you ate lunch with somebody that looks like him. Some of these police officers do not interact with black people ever. I come from a
Mm.
small town in East Tennessee. Before we go on, I got to give a shout out. My little town of Harriman, Tennessee, a young girl named Tiffany Eskridge brought together the NAACP and every police county and commissioner in the neighborhood and made them sit down and talk about this. So the Eskridge
Mm.
family and the NAACP did a great job. So my solution and thought to you is,
That's
do
all.
you think that it's a good solution to sit down and have these people talk to each other, or some type of program where police have to deal with minorities on a day-to-day basis?
Well, you know what happened in Flint today or last night was that when the protesters and the police came together, there was a handshake and there was a hug, and there was like, we all in this together, so I'm protesting too. And once the police became protesters, then the protesters also became police because they had a common goal. And I thought, man, that's a dynamite solution, right, to this whole thing. Instead of going out there with armor and guns and tear gas and so on and so forth, just meet at the site of the protest and say, yeah, we all believe the same thing here, that a wrong was done, and we want swift and comparable judgment to come out of it. So I'm standing here protesting with you, and you standing here policing with me. Now, maybe it sounds ideological, maybe it sounds impossible, but if it could happen in Flint, it could happen in New York, it could happen in Atlanta, it could happen in other places. And I think that would be an unbelievable piece to the solution.
I agree.
No, uh, yeah. Speaking of I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, and that actually happened yesterday. They was protesting. Everyone
Hmm.
out there got on down on one knee. Then half of the force got down on one knee, and they was able to understand each other. And like, if that could happen a
Mm.
lot more, I think it help everyone else out in this world. But
Mm.
we're getting ready to go to a
Yeah.
quick break. We're gonna come back. We love to talk basketball. We got some other things to talk about with the MVP. We ain't had an MVP on the call log. All we got is me and Tony shooting threes. But we got an MVP. We'll be right back.
In sixth grade. In sixth grade, I was MVP in the city league. What are you talking about? They don't care.
We still looking for that
See, but
photo.
y'all, I don't, y'all brothers, don't be like them other dudes, the haters that throw away my ABA years either.
Oh no, I have them,
No,
man.
no,
Hey,
no, no,
no.
no, no.
All right,
I got it.
all right.
I got lined up right here. But we'll be right back right after.
Being think positive and believe. I want to talk about your playing career. I remember, when you won that championship, and you played with Moses Malone, young Charles Barkley. He wasn't a part of that championship team, but what player growing up influenced you to be the special talent that you were?
Well, Tony, I think there was a couple different stages for me in terms of basketball influences. When I was in middle school, grammar school, middle school, the high school players. I mean, those were the guys. We'd heard about. They were our role models. We had a guy named Joe Blocker. We had a guy named what was his name? I can't remember right now, but they were just like they were the bomb. It was just like, man, I can't wait to get to high school and be like these guys. And we dreamed of that, and then suddenly I moved to another community, and it was almost like that bubble burst and another one was created, different role models, different players to look at and emulate. I had the fortune of when I walked to school, I had to walk past Jumpin' Johnny Green's house, and Jumpin' Johnny Green played for the Knicks, and he was a left-handed player and a little unorthodox, but he could jump, and he was always famous for tip dunking the basketball. I used to walk by this guy's house, man, so that was inspirational. Spider Lockhart, he lived in our community out in Long Island, and he played for the New York Giants. So we had two influences that were big in terms of opening our eyes to the path to the pros, but you wouldn't dare think that that's probably not for me. I'm a little skinny kid, and I don't know about making the pros, man. That's a tall order. So as I went through the whole progression of high school and being fortunate enough to get a scholarship, and then in college, growing 3 inches and gaining 30 pounds. I mean, that was probably one of the keys. I went from being a boy to being a man. And suddenly I'm 6'6", I'm 210 pounds versus getting out of high school at 6'2" and a half, 6'3", 165 pounds, and I'm doing things on the court that a lot of other people couldn't do. So that helped in terms of my confidence and you know coming up with these little slogans. Attitude is altitude. Dare to be great and whatever, and just going full bore like all of you had to go to put the work in to get the result that was desired.
Uh, so one of my favorite things that like I love watching about you is Rucker Park. And I've never got to experience anything like that outside, in the neighborhood with everyone. How was that feeling like
Hmm.
playing there in Rucker Park?
Yeah. Uh, so I leave college and I'm 21 because I went 3 years, played two varsity seasons because freshmen couldn't play varsity. So, I had good stats. I was like a 20-20 guy, 20 plus points, 20 plus rebounds every night. And before going to my first pro training camp, which was with the Virginia Squires, which was an ABA team, I've signed up with Charlie Scott and Fatty Taylor and the guys who played with the Squires and guys who played with the Nets to put together a team and play in the Rucker League. So I had never played in the Rucker League. I had played all over New York, but I always played pickup games when I would go from Long Island to New York. And we would travel by car and we would find games in Queens, we'd find games in Brooklyn, we'd find games in the Bronx, Manhattan, Harlem. But I never played in that park in a league. And that was the first year, playing in that league. And like the saying goes, if you play like a bum the first time you go there, then you're a bum forever. You can't get
Nah,
rid of that bum status or whatever. So you really had to show up with your game. And fortunately, I started out with a good game and played there for 5 seasons. My first 5 pro seasons, I played the basketball season, and then I played the summer basketball season at Rucker Park and whatever. And I think that
it, it,
helped to just hone some of my skills and fears, and you know, made me dare to be great.
so did y'all win? Did y'all win the championship? It sounded like you
Yeah,
had a
yeah, yeah. Well, I think
NBA
three out
team
of the
out there
five,
playing.
three out of the 5 years, I think we got it. I think we got the Rucker Park, and they
All I
had,
see the
hey
highlights. I
man,
don't know the score.
hey man, they had like 6 foot high trophies. So we were playing for those trophies, man.
Uh, my dad used to
You
tell
ever
me,
seen a 6 foot high trophy?
nah. My
Uh,
You
dad
can't
used to
even
tell me
get it
about
in the you can't get it in the car.
now, where your trophy at then? Doc, do you still have your trophy?
Man, those trophies are gone. They was at my mom's house forever. When she moved on, they moved on.
All right. Speaking of basketball, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Doc. So you tell me what you can't answer. So I would really
Okay,
got to know your top five. So you know the top five is going around. You got to lay it
okay.
on me.
Well, let me go back to that question that I didn't answer before. But Elgin Baylor was the greatest, I think, influence of watching somebody from afar, watching him on TV. And when he saw Elgin Baylor doing his thing, man, I was just like, whoa, what is he doing out there? That ain't the same basketball that I see when I go out here and go in the park and go to the playground. So this is going back to 10 or 11 or 12, once again, age-wise. And, you watch Wilt Chamberlain and you watch Bill Russell and Oscar Robertson and Jerry West, man. So by the time I was 15, that was my five. Bill Russell,
Okay.
Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, and the Big O, Oscar Robertson.
All right, give
So
it to me again
now
slow, but I gotta write this down. Give it to me again.
I'm gonna say it the rest of the night. So now that I'm 70,
All
now that I'm
right.
70, who's my five? Bill
Okay.
Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor. So in my
Elgin.
mind, I'm like, that's always gonna be my five. So guys can come and
You know
go.
what? Wow.
They got to be the second team and the third team because my five is my five. And I'm sure each of you got your five. So it ain't like you want to
TD,
kick somebody off your
All
five
right,
because this other
hold
guy
on,
comes
TD.
along.
Before you get them, now can you take the
hold on.
heat? Now we have fun
I
on the
gotta
show.
say
I don't
something real
want you to
quick.
be sensitive next time you see me. We gonna put some heat on you on
This
your top five. You all right? You
Hey,
ready?
hey, you know what? Hey,
That's
hey,
yeah.
why
hey,
I
Go
was wondering.
tell
it's tough.
Shell
Not
Shell
it's
who's your
tough to
who's your
leave.
top five?
No. Hey, first, Doc, it's
Mine,
tough to leave
Tony, you going
your fellow
first?
New Yorkers. No, Doc. It's tough. It's tough to leave your fellow New Yorker off the team. Lou Alcindor. I can't believe you didn't put Kareem on your team.
But but when I set up my team, I was 15 years old. So
Okay.
Kareem was like 16. He was 17 years old.
Okay.
So he
So
wasn't nowhere
you
near
can't
my
put a
team.
peer.
He wasn't
Okay.
nowhere near my team.
I respect. You know what?
Now who
I
now
respect that
now
because
who
I
is
respect
who
your body of work.
yeah. So who is the most
Okay. Here's my top
significant
five. My
player
top
to play in
five.
the history of the NBA?
Yeah.
That would
Well.
be
Yeah.
him.
Make a good point. Yeah.
He
Okay.
did more than
Well.
anybody in the history of the league. But my five is my five. So when you go with these other guys, they're on the second team, man.
Hey,
They're
hey,
on the second team.
Tony,
I
Tony.
love it. I
I
love
think
it.
I think Dr. J got a Paul Pierce vibe. That's all I'm gonna say. I think he got a Paul Pierce vibe. I don't know what happened back in the day. I think he got a Paul Pierce vibe. That's all I'm gonna say.
But you know what, Mel and Shep, it's really hard, and I know where Doc is coming from because if I had to choose the player from my time when I got drafted in 1996, that would be Kobe, Iverson, and there were Steve Nash, and there were great players that came out of my draft. But it's kind of hard to put your peers in because you played with those guys. So I do understand where Doc is coming
Yeah.
from when you're a year older or you're young, a player's year younger than you. It's hard to put those players in your top five. So I do respect that. And when we look at the body of work, or even Dr. J, who had a phenomenal career. Before there was Michael Jordan, for those people who are listening, watching, there was Dr. J. And my brothers turned me on to you back in the 80s. And my question to you is I know the game was physical with a lot more contact then. Do you appreciate where the game is at today?
Well, I do. I mean, I think it's entertaining. I think the fans and the sponsors are the big economic stimulus for the league being as successful as it is, as well as the economic expansion. I think some people say, well, the players play a little softer. I mean, they get a bad toe or whatever, they got to sit out, and the that's changed, but the property is more valuable. I mean, before, you had a 12-man team, and you had six guys who played consistently. Every now and then the coach would move around and play eight guys, and then you have four guys who were kind of just along for the ride. There was a big gap between player number one and player number eight. Now it's less of a gap. It's more of an equal opportunity situation where, you know, these guys, they take off, somebody else comes in, team It's just as good as it was when that guy took off a day or two or whatever. So guys are a little more prone, and they feel like, well, because of the economics of the situation, if I don't play 82 games or whatever, I mean, they're not going to miss me. It's just going to let me get some rest for the playoffs. And there's a different mindset to it. It's not like you got to play hurt each and every time you get hurt. I mean, I guess if you get hurt too much, they could sit down at contract time and say, man, you're just like an injury prone player, and we're gonna move you on because of that. But that's less likely to happen than likely to happen. And the game's a little softer. I mean, there's a lot more camaraderie. And there's a special type of camaraderie where I mean, guys just say, you let me go in, and I'll let you go. You let me go in on this, and I'll let you go in on this. And I was like, man, back in the day, that wasn't happening. But it seems like that's going on, even though you hope it's not, for the sake of real
I
competition.
disagree.
There, nobody's
Shit, what you
saying
say?
you gonna get you gonna get to walk through the lane, and then you're not gonna get knocked down. I mean,
Yeah.
when you walk through
Nah.
the lane back in the day, you got knocked down no matter what. I mean, whether it's a little guy knocking you down, a big guy, or whatever, it's just there was high risk behavior, but there was also a gratification between going in on a big dude and throwing it down on him. And it wasn't like a chest bumping experience. It's just like, let me run down and play defense now because I know somebody gonna be trying to get in my face and get in my grill.
Yeah.
So
So
times
I
change.
with that. Yeah, with that. I know it's kind of before your time, but with that, like everyone talk about how everyone's getting closer and is like getting soft. So what do you say about the 19 Like all those guys are best friends, hanging out the whole time and stuff. Or even like when we watched the
Which
Last
team?
Dance, they was all playing at Jordan's facility. Summer. What we doing now is we all soft. The young soft, but they was doing the same thing.
He said, which team, Shell? Which team?
He was
Not to
talking about
my
Chicago,
we all
but you're
saw.
talking about his team. You're talking about his teammates, the guys who were on his team.
No. I'm talking about
The guy,
when he was filming Space Jam. They built a Jordan Dome, and then all the best players from the
yeah,
league came and played with him. Yeah, like if we do the same thing now, people call it soft. Like when Katie and LeBron was working out together, like you ain't supposed to do that. But like we got them doing it.
yeah. I mean, I think you're going to have individual relationships. There's nothing wrong with that, and having a guy who you like be on the opposing team, and I mean, you pulling for him. I mean, I had guys that I liked, and I'm friends with today, and guys who George Gervin. I love George Gervin, man, but every time I got on the court or whatever, if George came down that lane, he had to get dropped. And that was David Thompson came down the lane. He had to get dropped, whatever. And if it wasn't me, then it was the enforcer's job, to do it. But the property's more valuable now, so you can't. That's why they have. What do they call it? The flagrant foul rules. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different levels of flagrant fouls. So if you blow on a guy, that's a flagrant foul 1.
And you played, you
And
played,
then you
you
smack
played
him
the
on the
concussion,
butt. You smack him on the
but you
butt.
played in the
That's a
concussion
flagrant
era
foul
though.
too.
Hey, but y'all forgot. Julius will throw them things. I see a couple times. He put hands on you.
Oh no,
Can
he
you
finished a
still
fight
throw
now.
hands,
Oh
doctor?
yeah,
So
Can you
yeah.
still
He
throw
flagrant
them
foul
things?
3.
Doctor didn't mind fighting. We should have put those videos up to let people know that it is a different time, a different era of basketball. And hey, like I said, you had some enforcers, but you was enforcing yourself. You didn't need an enforcer.
That's true. That's true. But the property's more valuable now. I mean, a guy making $30 million. You can't just take him out the air. It just don't even seem right.
Respect.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. You gotta respect the budget in that situation.
But
All right,
Doc, I
I
want.
got another little quick question.
That one, go ahead, Shell.
I got a quick question for him, man. You
Okay.
see my hair? What products will you
Yeah.
use in my hair like yours back in the day? I'm trying to grow my stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You need some Kiehl's. Kiels.
That man ain't no help for that. Ain't no help.
You need
Hey,
some
but next,
kills, man. Put it up there. My son got that hair right there too, man. And every now and then he surprised me with a haircut. He come home like, I got a
Yeah,
haircut. I'm like, okay,
it's
it's your
it's story
hair.
team
It's
like.
your hair, your face. Nah, it
talk
looks
about
good,
your
man. It's representing.
Not definitely.
talk about your book a little bit, Julius, and tell us about the book and what made you do
Yeah,
it. Because I
so
know with Corona, we had a lot
yeah.
of free time. Everybody can read. Tell us.
Yeah, that's right. Y'all could have written a book in the last 2 months. You know, it was a start and stop project for me. I mean, I thought about doing my autobiography when I was in my 40s. Shortly after retiring, I got out at 37, and worked for NBC Sports for 6 years, and I thought about wanting to do the book project. So I started and stopped many times, and I was doing the book in response to a lot of paperbacks that had come out about Julius Dr. J. Erving. So they were unsanctioned biographies by people who I didn't give my permission to them, and it was about their take on my life and my story, my basketball journey, my off the court story, my family. And it was maybe about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 paperbacks, that were out there, and they came out. They had different names on them, and I was like, man, this ain't right. Somebody just capitalizing on me and my fame or whatever, and writing these books. I need to set the record straight. So that's when I started, and it took a long time to do it. It took a long time to do it, and I had a few different ghostwriters, and finally I got one guy, and we knocked it out in like 60 days. I mean, we just said, all right, it's me and you for the next 60 days. I'm gonna be like, we're gonna be like a married couple. We're getting up every day. We're going everywhere together. We eating, drinking, and sitting down, and we're writing until this is done. And then we went to the various locations where the story came from. It came from Long Island and in Nassau County, and then from there it went to Massachusetts, where I went to school. Then I went to Virginia, where I started my pro career, and then back to Long Island, and then down to Philadelphia. And the wrap up to the book was ultimately in Philadelphia, where I was residing when I did the book. So it's like anything else. You put the work in, then you're going to get a great feeling of satisfaction out of it, whether it's popular, whether it's novel, whether it's a win or not. You're going to get satisfaction out of that journey. So that journey for me was a great journey, and it was a great relief once it was done, and now it's in the marketplace. So I hope if you guys get a chance to read it, that you enjoy it, and that it helps you and motivates you to go on and write your own story. I know about Tony's Academy, so that commercial in between, that's a great look. That's a great story into itself. That's probably a whole book that you get just about being associated with the Academy.
Right. And also, like I said, if, at some point in time, we would love to have you stop by and talk to our kids and our parents. Is there anything in your lifetime that you would change from your playing career, your businesses, your family? There's something that you can share with our listeners that could help them understand what made you the person and the individual you are today.
Hmm. Well, I go back to my mom and the fact that my mother and father both from South Carolina, so they have Southern roots. And unfortunately, when they moved from South Carolina, they moved to Chicago, and then they moved from Chicago to New York. So, when they moved to New York, didn't work out for them. After the third child was born, which was my little brother or whatever, they separated. And so I basically grew up, in a life that didn't have a father figure at home, but I had father figures who were outside, outside of my home. And that was not the easiest thing in the world, because when I got home, my mother was the father figure, and she was my mother and my father. So she played both those roles. So she gets credited with being the greatest influence in my life. And one of the things that I definitely didn't want was to make her life more difficult than it already was. She was raising a daughter who was a beautiful young girl, and then two boys, and whatever. So, for me, it wasn't hard to be a good kid. It's hard to be a bad kid and bring trouble to the house. That was different. It's like a challenge. Like, I don't know how to do that. But she was she was the shining light, and she was an educator by trade. She had a teaching certificate when she was in South Carolina. When she moved north, they wouldn't let her teach, so she did domestic work. And she did domestic work, and then she always liked to do all the little girls' hair, dressing on the stove with the curling iron and all that stuff. And then she got a booth in a shop, and then she got her own shop. So she was an entrepreneur, and she was an inspiration, and she was a very religious woman, very spiritual. And she passed when she was 80 in 2004, and at that time I was 54 years old. So I had her for the majority of my life, and she was always there. Like Evander Holyfield used to say, his mother used to be intimidating to him, and she'd get on the phone, he'd get on the phone with her, and she could see that broom. He could see that broom coming through the phone to hit him if he said the wrong thing. And I was
Yeah,
like,
man.
okay, early. My mom wasn't that bad, but I definitely had super respect for her.
Right.
Well, that's good to hear, Doc. We're gonna let you get on to what you got to do. Before we let you go, three
Yeah.
things that we
Okay.
all have in common that I want to tell you is the Salvation Army. Tony actually his academy is run through the Salvation at a Salvation Army location, so it's right here in Marietta.
Excellent, man.
Yeah, I don't
Uh-huh.
know if y'all know this, Doc. He's a national. Julius, you can tell him about you in the Salvation Army.
Oh man, the Salvation Army is all and everything. For me. I mean, they were. I mean, just a saving grace in terms of the guy who coached me at the Salvation Army. Man, he's the mayor of Hempstead, Long Island, and he's let's see, I'm 70, so he's 79. So when I was 10, he was 19, and he started coaching me when he was 19 years old. White guy named Don Ryan, and I'm forever indebted to Don. We talk a few times a year, and you know, my story is when I got nominated and selected to go into the Hall of Fame. They were like, "Would you like any representations to be behind you or anything when you get announced?" I said, "Yeah, put the Salvation Army behind me. Put the banner of the Salvation Army up there because they influenced my life from age 9, 10, 11 to today, and they continue to do that. And Tony, we're gonna get together, man, in Atlanta and do something for the Corps.
Let's
And
make it
back in the
happen,
day, it
man.
used to be, yeah, it used to be, not for ourselves but for others, and that was the slogan. And we used to try to live by that.
Yeah, so all these guys, like when I asked you for help and you helped me out, Julius, Shelvin, and Tony both helped out with the Salvation Army. Before I let you go, the
Awesome,
question I want to ask you
awesome.
about to leave everybody with is tell everybody, the youngsters and the young entrepreneurs about the businesses. Because you was doing big business deals in the 70s when you were the ABA and then the NBA, Coca-Cola, the Crown
Mhm.
Royal. Tell them about the Coca-Cola and we're going to let you go because that's amazing to me what y'all.
Well, I mean, agents are a big influence in life, and I had an agent, and he was the same agent that Walt Frazier had, and we kind of rode his back uh, a little bit, uh, and because he always came down the pike with some deals for us, and for me. I was different than Clyde. Clyde was super fly, reincarnated, with the Rolls Royce and all of that. And I took a lower profile than Clyde, even though we were really good friends and still good friends to this day. And my thoughts about that were that if I do stuff, 21 when you became a pro, hey, just another guy coming in. You got to earn your stripes. They're not saying that you are the franchise and you are the future or whatever. You had to work your way up, through the ladder. of success and work through the veterans. And the veterans were the ones, trying to steer you and tell you the ins and outs, the rights and wrongs, and the do's and don'ts, or whatever. So the endorsement thing, it really happened for me. I think it grew out of doing public service, and public service was instilled in me because of my association with the Salvation Army.
Man, I appreciate your time and thank you for sharing today. I know the brothers, the other NBA legends, appreciate you too.
All right.
Thank you,
I,
man. We
I
Good,
appreciate
definitely
good to
that.
see
appreciate
you
you.
guys, man. Continued
Thank
success
you.
down the road, okay? Yep. We'll talk again. We will see each other again.
Thank
No
Julius.
Yes,
doubt.
sir. Thank you.
All right. All right.
We're gonna go right to break. We're gonna come back. We got another guest that we all know. Want to say appreciate Mr. Dr. J for coming in and doing his thing. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
I'm Mel Clemens. A lot of people ask me what made me get into the insurance business. I tell them, number one, the Allstate brand has been around 50 plus years, helping customers throughout the entire country protect their home, their lives, their families, and even their automobiles. The number one way we stand out from other agencies is we're here 24 hours a day between online customer service, 24 hours a day phone support, and my wonderful staff has been trained over 20 plus years to make sure we find you the deepest discounts to keep customers happy. We also have a new discount called the Home, Auto, and Life, because Allstate protects life insurance also. We want to make sure your kids, your grandfather, your grandkids are taken care of. Anytime you need the Mel Clemens Agency, you can go online or call us. We've been able to help thousands of customers throughout the Southeast, from Georgia to South Carolina to Tennessee. In good times and bad times, the Mel Clemens Agency is always around.
Are you suffering from fear and anxiety? The Allen Counseling Clinic is here to help. Our goal is to help you grow from your struggles, heal from your pain, overcome your fears, and get the relief from your anxiety. Call now, area code 424-295-6222.
Anybody can get it.
Hey man, CBF, Camps Boxing and Fitness, 2350 Ventura Road. Anybody can get it.
Hold on. Hey, just cue the video. I need to see this video you talking about of you working out. Let me see this video.
Puts his hands up.
Hey, they
Yeah.
didn't hear you.
Is that
Start
in
over,
slow
Peyton.
mo?
They couldn't hear you.
Hey, is that in slow
Hey,
motion?
yeah, they cut it down in slow motion. Shelvin did okay today. I wish I had the footage. Shelvin, hey, cut that commercial off, man. Shelvin did really, really well this week, people. He raced a 15-year-old kid by the name of Chase Clemens. They had a foot race, and Um, he did the best he could. Let's just say that.
Tony,
And
tell the people what you saw at the boxing ring with Shell, with Champs. What did you see, Tony, when you was
oh, when
there?
Shell
You
got in the
visited.
box, when Shell got in the boxing ring this week, he did really really well. His friend came down. They won a few rounds. Shell won a few. His friend won a few. The only thing that really went bad for him was that race when he raced Chase Clemens this week. It was really, really terrible. I think we have some footage somewhere. Tony, don't you still have that footage?
AP, you know what, man? I thought I had that footage, and actually, I
Oh
was
man,
laughing
you
at
got
you,
that
so I
footage.
didn't record it, man. I
Oh
can't put my boy out there, but I tell you this right now, Chase Clemens is a fast young man.
He
yeah,
definitely.
he's really, really fast. He has speed, and I knew he didn't take it after his dad's side of the family because all of them is short and kind of stubby. So I think it really came from his mom's side. Um, but he did really, really well. Me
Hey
and
man,
Mel was just, hey Mel, did you tell him?
Pete, hold on, Pete, we
Yes.
got something for you. Young. How was your birthday?
Hey,
You
break it down.
turned 7.
Break it down, Pete. Break it down, Pete.
My birth. Oh, there it goes. Shelvin throws a punch. Shelvin catches it. Shelvin get hits with the jab. Shelvin moving around. Shelvin moving in fear. Shelvin get hits with another jab. Shelvin jumps back. Shelvin puts his hands up. Shelvin quit. That's
I'm
why.
trying to, Pete, I'm trying to figure out where is his headgear, man? Are we hitting? Are we just doing all body shots, or
Well,
is it headshot?
you know why by Shelvin being a professional and by him, working out with Champs Boxing and fitness so long, he really don't use headgear because he has speed and endurance. The last bum got in there with them needed life insurance. Shelvin Mag.
Go ahead, Shell. What you gonna say to the man? Shell, tell him something,
Hey,
please.
Shelvin, hold on. Before you go
Matt,
any further, I'm kind of upset about the last time you guys had me on. Mel really made me feel bad when he was talking about my number 58 Beijing. So I would like for all the people to know right now that Mel has been, using Rogaine. It hasn't worked. Mel, can you please take off your hat for Shelvin and Tony and let them see what happened? He put that comes from using relaxers all of these years, and it took his hair out. But it's okay. It's okay.
Tony, you
It's
laughing a little
okay.
too hard, TD. You
hey
laughing a little
No,
too
no, no,
man,
no,
hard,
no.
TD.
Mel, just tell his finger and do this on his hairline. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah, he didn't color before he came. You see the gray already in the side. Who
Hey,
get
Mel,
a gray
would you do
line?
one? Mel, forget all that. Do one thing for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Please take off your hat.
It's glued on, man. I can't take it off.
No, take off your hat, and I want you to bend down and let them see the crown of your head. Take it off.
Shell,
Take
Shell,
it
get him
off.
off of me,
Take
Shell.
it off. Take it off. Take it
Look
off.
at Tony. Shell, he got 2 minutes left. Anything, Shell, we gonna say to this man.
Hey,
Hey
go ahead,
man,
Shell.
all we doing is we just want to congratulate you on your birthday the other day, man. They said you turned 60. We want to
Hey,
know
there
what
you
hits
go,
you first, how
that
political
okay.
you are.
Hey,
No,
Shell, you know
he's
what?
61. He's 61, Shell. He's 61. I looked it
Hey,
up. He's
hey, hey,
61.
hey, Mel, I know now why Shelvin didn't win that race when he was racing Chase. I found out.
What?
What happened,
What
Pete?
happened?
You know that black toenail he got at the top on the right foot? That one is the
Ooh, he got
one with the
Shaq feet.
fuzzy.
He got
Yeah, man, the
Shaq
one
feet.
with the bunion on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something. It's something.
Hey Tony,
Same.
you pretty athletic, brother. When you came in there, I was impressed, man. You in shape.
I do a little something, Pete. I sit back and watch, man. I do more coaching than anything these days, So I'm kind of
I
happy
got
that
you.
Shell come in and he worked with our young players, but seemed like I like your setup over there. you're a positive influence on many different young people coming through. And like I said, hey, I'll be coming back, man.
I
Hold
really
on,
appreciate that.
TD.
I really appreciate that. Yes, Jesus.
TD, you get out. TD, you get out your players and stuff. You let them know how you moving and stuff. Pete, can you get in the ring? Show us how you moving. Like we gotta see something, man.
Hey, moving.
Hey,
I tell you what.
Pete
I tell you what.
airball tonight.
I tell
Pete
you what. I'll
airball
get in there with Mel.
a
Hey, I
layup,
tell
a
you what,
layup.
Tony. Hey, Tony and Shelvin.
P,
I
I
tell
got my
you
money
what.
on you, man. P, I got
Let's
my
do
money
a
on you. Hey, P,
fun.
you gotta say
Let's
nothing.
do it.
My money is on
Let's
you.
do a fundraiser. TD, let's do a fundraiser for the kids. Me and Mel. 3 weeks in the gym.
Oh
Give
man,
us 3
wow.
weeks to get in shape. Let's do a
Hold on.
fundraiser for the kids.
Will there be
Hey,
will
y'all
there
gonna
be
get in the
headgear?
ring?
Yeah, we're gonna put on headgear.
All
Just
right
go
then.
to the box.
Okay
You don't
All
never
right.
box no boxer. Anybody with common sense know that.
then.
You
We
Hey,
never
already know
but
box no
you
Mel.
Hey,
did. Hey Mel, you
That's a
did really,
setup.
really well when you got in there with Shelvin. I mean, you only lift your leg up 3 times. When he we
Pete,
have
I
footage.
know why.
Hey people, they have footage of that. We'll show that next week.
Well, I know why Coach
Yeah,
P
we
like
got
to
footage.
tell jokes. Hey, Tony, this is why Coach P like to tell jokes. He just had his birthday and his wife bought him them brand new veneer teeth, so he been wanting to show them off. They look good, P. Them veneers look good. I bet you won't take them out and eat no ribs.
Hey,
I bet you won't eat no
hey,
ribs. I bet
I
you
tell you
won't.
this.
You eat
I
one
tell
rib,
you this.
all that'll be on the floor. On the floor.
I tell you this. You better get that 30,000 that you and Steph just put back on that Rogaine you got for your hair and it didn't grow. That's
All I'm gonna say, P, I'm gonna hand you one sugar daddy. Bet you won't eat a sugar daddy.
hey,
Bet you
hey,
won't taste a sugar daddy.
hey. How much was your
See,
eyebrow implant?
I bet you won't eat a sugar daddy though. I bet on that.
How much is your
You won't even
eyebrow
lick one.
implant?
Laffy Taffy. You get scared when you think about Laffy Taffy, don't you?
Hey
Hey
man,
man,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
we gotta get him out of here, man. Hey P,
We
hey,
gotta
happy
go, man.
birthday
hey.
again, man. You don't look a
Thanks,
day over
man.
60. It's a blessing, man, that you
Hey,
can go this many years. You and Dr. J graduating
hey.
together, coming through the streets of
Can
New
I
York.
can I
Y'all
can I
look good.
can I say something? Hey, Shelvin, TD, I want to say something to the people before you go. This is the #1 talk show podcast on period. Y'all keep listening, keep watching. They can't do nothing but go up. But one thing I do want to come up is male hairline because it's back here. So we needed to come up. So Mel, next time you salute, we ain't going here. We gonna bring it here on the tip of your haircut, okay?
I
Mel,
got you.
take off your hat and bow for the people. Give me a birthday present. Take off your hat.
Hey, Toy,
Take
it
it
was
off.
nice having Coach P on. Be safe, P. We'll
Hey,
see you at the gym. Let
Think
them out.
positive,
Get them out of
believe.
here.
Love you guys. Appreciate it.
hey,
Thanks for
Mel. Let me say my
tuning
hey,
in.
famous
appreciate
line.
everybody
Champs
watching.
Boxing and
We
Fit.
going to
Champs
we
Boxing
going.
and Fitness, 2350 Ventura Road, Smyrna, Georgia. Anybody can get it. Come over.
Yeah,
Come
especially
one, come all. Come to Champs. You're gonna take a fall. These boys got speed and endurance. The last bump got in there with Shelvin Mac TD and Mel needed life insurance. Peace.
be safe, man. Be safe.
All
Hey,
Enjoy.
right. Take off.